When I was just a few weeks away from being born, my dad walked out on my mom, not with a fight, not with tears, just cold, calculated abandonment. He packed his bags, looked my mother in the eye and said, "I'm leaving." She was 9 months pregnant with her third child, me. She had 2 little kids clinging to her, a house barely held together by stress and prayers, and not a single soul to lean on. And he left her like she was nothing. I never knew my father. Not really. The few times he did show up, he was either drunk or trying to act like the fun uncle rather than the man responsible for wrecking our family. I never called him dad. He never earned it. We grew up fast. Too fast. My siblings and I learned not to ask for things because we knew money was tight. My mom worked 2 jobs, came home exhausted, and still found time to make sure we were fed, clothed, and did our homework. She was relentless. She was strong because she had no choice. And we loved her for it. And then, out of nowhere, my father reached out. 30 years later, when I had built my own life, my own success, and a future he had no part in creating, he suddenly wanted to reconnect. No apologies, no acknowledgement of the years he had stolen from us, just a casual, "Hey, let's catch up." At first, I ignored him. What was there to say? He had never called on my birthdays, never checked if we had food, never showed up to graduations. He wasn't there when my mom had to sell her wedding ring just to cover rent. He wasn't there when she broke down crying because she didn't know how she was going to feed 3 kids. And now that I was doing well, he wanted a relationship? But then my mom's sweet, selfless, eternally forgiving told me I should give him a chance. People change, she said. Maybe he regrets it. I didn't believe that for a second, but for her, I agreed to meet him. I walked into the cafe, expecting an old man weighed down by regret. Instead, I found a well-dressed, confident guy who looked like he hadn't struggled a day in his life. He greeted me with a huge smile like we were old friends, ordered the most expensive coffee on the menu, and then without a shred of shame he asked if I could help him out financially. That was it. I laughed. Loud. People turned to stare. He blinked, confused, like he didn't understand what was funny. "You abandoned us," I said. "Mom nearly worked herself to death to give us a life, and now you think you can just stroll in here and ask me for money?" He had the audacity to look offended. "I'm still your father." "No, you're not," I shot back. "You lost that title the day you walked away." He tried to guilt-trip me, said he had his reasons, that things were complicated, that he wasn't in the right place back then. I leaned in. "Were you in the right place when you got remarried? Had another kid? Raised him like the son you never had?" His face went pale. "Yeah, I knew." I found out months before the meeting. He had a whole new family, a son 10 years younger than me. A son he actually raised. A son who got the birthday parties, the bedtime stories, the fatherly advice. While my mom was selling furniture just to keep the lights on, he was playing catch with his new kid in their backyard. And now, apparently, that kid didn't want anything to do with him either. Turns out, he wasn't just a deadbeat to us she screwed over his second family, too. That's why he came crawling back. Not because he missed me. Not because he had regrets. Because he had nowhere else to go. I stood up, threw some cash on the table for my own coffee, and left. He called a few times after that. Left messages about how I was being unfair, how I should let the past go. I blocked his number. My mom still says I should forgive him, but you know what? I don't owe him that. I don't owe him anything. Some people don't deserve second chances. Some bridges deserve to stay burned. I will be very grateful if you subscribe to our channel. I was walking home late in the afternoon, my 2-year-old son asleep in my arms, a bag of groceries slung over my shoulder, when I noticed an elderly man up ahead. He must have been in his mid-80s, moving painfully slow, his thin legs trembling with every step. He was dressed in a once expensive suit, now worn and slightly frayed at the edges, like he was someone who used to care about appearances but had stopped a long time ago. Something about him made me uneasy. Not in a dangerous way, just the way he moved, the way his eyes darted around like he was afraid of something. And then, right in front of me, he stumbled. He didn't just trip, his legs completely gave out. His frail body collapsed forward, face first onto the pavement with a sickening smack. I gasped, but before I could react, I noticed another man walking by, maybe in his 20s, dressed sharp, earbuds in, completely aware of what had just happened. He glanced at the old man on the ground, made eye contact with me, then looked back at his phone and kept walking. No hesitation. No reaction. Just nothing. I felt sick. My son stirred in my arms and I whispered to him, "It's okay, baby," before crouching down beside the old man. His face was scraped, blood running from his nose. His hands, paper thin and covered in liver spots, trembled as he tried to push himself up. "Sir, are you okay?" I asked, my voice shaking. He chuckled. Actually chuckled. "Guess I'm just getting too old for this," he muttered, as if he had simply tripped over a shoelace and not just slammed into the pavement like a fallen tree. I tried to help him up, but the moment I let go, he swayed again, like a leaf in the wind. I needed help, but who was I supposed to ask? The street wasn't deserted, but people were actively avoiding looking at us. I scanned the crowd, my pulse pounding, but all I saw were blank faces and averted eyes. I had no choice. I pulled out my phone and called 911. "Hey, listen, there's an elderly man here. He's fallen twice. He's bleeding, and I don't think he can stand on his own." The dispatcher sounded bored. "Is he conscious?" "Yes." "Is he breathing?" "Yes." "Does he want medical assistance?" I turned to him. "Sir, an ambulance." "No," he said firmly. "No hospitals." The dispatcher sighed. "If he refuses, there's nothing we can do." I wanted to scream, but he can't even stand. Silence. Then, "If he's in immediate danger, call back. Otherwise, you might want to call non-emergency services." I hung up, gripping my phone so tight my knuckles turned white. I couldn't believe it. Then, a young couple finally approached. The woman bent down, putting a hand on the old man's back. "Sir, are you okay? Do you need help?" I exhaled, relieved. "I think he needs somewhere to sit. I don't know where he lives, but—" "I live just a block away," the man cut in, his voice suddenly sharper. "I'll be fine." I hesitated. I didn't believe him. The couple exchanged a glance, and the man spoke softly. "Can we at least walk you home?" The old man looked away, then nodded. "I'd appreciate that." I didn't want to leave, but my son was waking up fussy, rubbing his little eyes. I had to get him home. The last thing I saw as I walked away was the old man leaning heavily on the young couple, shuffling toward the dimming horizon. That should have been the end of it. But 3 days later, I saw his face again. Not in person, on the news. Breaking: local millionaire and former CEO of Hartwell Industries found dead in his home. Neighbors say he had been struggling since the loss of his fortune and family years ago. His body was discovered after an anonymous tip led police to check on him. Foul play is suspected. My stomach dropped. Hartwell Industries. I knew that name. Everyone did. The company had collapsed in a massive scandal over a decade ago. Lawsuits, fraud accusations, unpaid wages, the whole thing had gone up in flames. Hundreds of employees lost everything. Retirement funds wiped out overnight. The CEO? He vanished. Or at least, that's what people thought. Turns out he had just been here. An old man in a tattered suit, bleeding on the sidewalk, ignored by the world he helped build and destroy. And now he was dead. I thought about the man who had walked past him that day, the way he had looked at him. No hesitation, no reaction. Like he knew exactly who he was. Like he knew what was coming. And maybe, just maybe, he was the one who made sure of it.